Welcome, and thank you for joining The Logic of It All with your host, Reverend Gary Essex Sprunger.
Hello. Thanks for joining in on the conversation. The last time, on episode 25, we were dealing with the human Jesus and the spiritual Jesus. The human Jesus was a savant in understanding the relationship we have with the Creator, and then how we are to live with one another. The spiritual Jesus is understood as a spiritual Son of God, sacrificed to die so that everyone could be saved from our sins. We discussed how the human Jesus offers a far more personal relationship with God than it is between God and us with Jesus up here. We left off knowing that two prominent figures of the Sanhedrin, members of the council, were the two that saved the body of Jesus from being thrown onto the piles of rotting flesh on Golgotha by placing him in the new tomb owned by the wealthy Joseph of Arimathea. Nicodemus, the leader of the Pharisees, helped carry the body to the tomb and prepared it to be resting on a slab in the tomb. I have to confess, I have been holding back something that happened because I did not know how to present the information in the meaningful way it deserves. Before I go further, I plead with you again to go back to November 2023 and start with episode 1, so that by following the logic, all we've been discussing will not seem so heretical. The event happened a few weeks after this podcast, the first podcast began, The Logic of It All, sometime in December of 23, I believe. Finally, in October of 2024, I had to start somehow and decided to just present it as it unfolded. Off the cuff, I just began talking one day, trying to describe what had happened. I'm not sure how to explain this. I could have picked a warmer day, but I've been sitting on it for months, not knowing how best to present this. I came out of the grocery store, and I usually park right here by the grocery cart depot, and my car was right next to it, but not this time because it was all filled up. And so I just left my cart there and carried my groceries down in the parking lot to my car. It's quite a little ways, and it was, let's see, where was it? It was somewhere over at this end of the parking lot. And as I approached the car to put in my grocery bags, this guy, mid-30s, late 30s, grabbed my arm. And he said, I mean you no harm. Well, I looked at him and I didn't know what he had in mind. And I don't know why he grabbed my arm. And in my left arm, I had my grocery bags that I was about to put in the trunk of the car. And I was ready to swing at him. And he sensed that and relaxed his grip and said again, I mean you no harm. And then he stepped back and he said, I have something for you. If you are the man who does the podcasts. And I said, yes. He said, please get in the car. I said, get in the car? Okay. So I got in the car and he said, I'll ride with you. And he said, just park here any place. And so I did. I just parked. And he said, you have 1 hour. I said, 1 hour? He said, 1 hour to read this until you have it memorized. I said, why can't I just take a picture of this? And then he took my phone. He said, no, just memorize it. We have 1 hour. And so I started to read it. And as I read it, I said, is this original? He said, a copy. I said, why are you showing this to me? And he said, it is time. I looked at him, and he nodded again. It is time. 1 hour is all the time we have. 1 hour. So I started reading it and read it and reread it and reread it until I had it memorized. And then his alarm went off and the hour was up. And he said, I must go. He said, be truthful. I said, what should I do with this? He said, you'll know. Be truthful. And I said, I don't know why. This is unbelievable. And he said, it is time. And he got out of the car, and I saw him go around the building. And I'm still shaken up, even though this happened months ago. It still is an unnerving thing. I don't know why. That was a rather crudely done video, and I didn't go into much detail. The document the guy showed me was carried in what looked like a portfolio case an artist or photographer would carry their work in to show to a prospect what they could do, their work. The guy, I shouldn't keep saying guy, he was the protector of the letter. Sounds better. When he took it out of the case, he had to remove it from an inner protective cover, which he did with a soft prayer I could not hear. He propped the case on the dash with the document on top where I could see it easily. I looked at it carefully. A copy, he said, a translation from Hebrew to Greek to English. A couple of times I asked something he disapproved of, like, was it ever in the hands of the Knights Templar? His eyes showed disapproval to the question. I forgot to mention, he was wearing a black COVID-type mask, and all I could see of his face really was his eyes. He didn't like my asking if the original was ever hidden on Oak Island. How did you keep the original safe for so long? I asked. That brought a cold read from the protector. When time was up before he put it safely away, I had to recite the entire letter. He followed each word and smiled, well done, as he put it back in the case carefully, reverently, with again a soft-spoken prayer. And as he got out of the car, he put my phone in the passenger side door, the well, where I couldn't reach it quickly. He held my gaze for a moment and said, be true. He left. I went home through the garage, picking up a writing pad used for projects, and as quickly as I could, I began writing as fast as I could while still remembering every word of the letter. Yeah, that's what I wrote. The letters of each word were hand-drawn. Beautiful, beautiful, intricate work. I printed out the letter so you could have an idea, sort of what it looked like. And that letter looks like this. This is what it looks like. Can you see? So that's the letter. I'll turn the camera around and see if we can't read this together.
Nicodemus, student of Jesus, to friends and followers of Jesus, I write to thee of details after his death. Grace be unto thee and peace. Two of us, surprising each other, were afar, unseen, witnessing his crucifixion. We talked. Joseph was to ask Pilate for the body of Jesus. I was to go home for supplies to properly prepare the body of Jesus and hide them near the tomb. We met on the hill to lower his body, which we freed from the nails. We carried his body wrapped in plain cloth to the tomb of Joseph. We tended his wounds and anointed his body with myrrh and spices, and wrapped Jesus in plain cloth and then fine linen. We tilted the heavy stone to cover the grave entrance as Pilate's guards were approaching at a distance. Joseph departed for Arimathea, but was later detained by the consul. I went to the upper room house, knowing where his disciples were hiding, wondering how I, considered an enemy, could warn them. There had been conversation at council about taking the body of Jesus to be thrown on the pile at Golgotha. Then someone was approaching with caution. I calmed the surprised Matthias, frightened at the sight of me, and explained the consul's plan, but didn't know how to warn the disciples. Matthias was fearful to go up there, as he worried they all might be captured at any moment. We talked. I bade him to meet me at the garden entrance with as many wineskins he could carry. At my home, I gathered up skins as well, with some pottery shards. We met same time at the garden, and though Matthias was unsure about the plan, we approached the guards at the tomb. We befriended them, saying we too came to watch, fearful someone might steal the body of Jesus away. Much wine was passed. We laid down as to sleep, and the guards fell into a drunken sleep. We shed our robes and shaped them like we were sleeping, and with effort tilted the stone enough to enter and allow moonlight for us to see inside the cave. The back wall was a large rock with a carved slab upon which lay the body of Jesus. Matthias stopped his sobbing at the sight, fearing the guards might hear. I prayed the plan would come true from what I had remembered when we laid the body of Jesus on the slab wrapped in the linen. We scraped the surface dirt to one side of the cave before we started digging. As we dug and scraped with the shards, the new dirt was piled on the other side. We were digging in front of the slab to go down to the right depth. I prayed the dirt under the large rock was not clay for pottery, and that the shards would hold up. We thank Yahweh that we could dig under the slab of the rock, which must have been resting in the back on limestone. A guard stirred, we could hear. Matthias quickly slipped out, dressed and sidled up to the guard, and gave him more wine while we continued to dig. When the guard was back to sleep, Matthias joined, and we were successful in digging out enough space under the slab. We both prayed as we unwrapped the fine linen, and then in plain cloth, the body of Jesus was placed beneath the slab. We cried as we prayed and stuffed dirt in and tightly around the body of Jesus. We thank Yahweh for the life of Jesus and asked forgiveness if we had done something sinful. We folded the linen and placed it on the slab, and using all our strength, tilted the stone to give full opening into the cave. After quickly dressing back into our robes, exhausted, we lay on the ground, easily crying and praying thankfully for the angel that came taking away the body of Jesus. A guard, awakened by our commotion, came to us asking what happened. Did he not see it? The angel? It was wondrous bright, brighter than day, as he took the body of Jesus away. The guard believed me as I told him the angel moved the stone like it was a pebble in the sandal. He looked in and, seeing it empty, ran to tell the other guard what had happened. It was nearing dawn, and we hurriedly gathered up the empty skins. Both guards came to us, and I said, "These cannot be seen when what happened becomes known." The guards didn't know what to do. I assured them we did not want them to be in trouble, and said we had to be in our homes before dawn, or we would be in trouble with the consul. Please, we were never here. If it was known, our enemies would say we stole the body of Jesus. And if we were here, you could be in trouble for letting it happen. We don't want to be in trouble, and you don't want to be in trouble, I said to them in confidence. The guards nodded. We were not here, so we cannot say anything about the angel. But when the story comes out, we and the disciples will support the story full-heartedly. We grasped each other's forearm, looking eye to eye. Matthias got up from praying, and we left hurriedly, taking everything we brought with us. Waving a farewell, I prayed the guards would tell what happened with conviction. I tell ye who have followed Jesus, your rabbi, your teacher, so thou wilt have peace and comfort, knowing the body of Jesus has been safely laid to rest. May his Spirit dwell with thee and those of your family, and may the love of Yahweh grace all the days of your life. Humbly, Nicodemus, who studied with him in secret.
I hope you can understand why I kept thinking I had to present it appropriately, like maybe doing it as a novel. Something more than just, here it is, the letter. But his words, be true, haunted me until finally, this is the letter. This whole experience has left me with a lot of questions and thoughts, which we'll share next time. But we're out of time now, and the coffee's cold. Have a good rest of your day and sunshine tomorrow.
Thank you for following The Logic of It All and the Hope for a Christian Reformation. If you have followed since episode 1, you're welcome to the website, thelogicofitall.com. Join us again for much, much more in The Logic of It All.